Hello and welcome to the 27th episode of the Ball and Chain podcast. I'm your host, Mark Thomas, coming to you from the LA area, and excited to have everyone on this wonderful and beautiful Monday. And got a lot that's going on out there in the world of sports. As everyone knows, I'm a huge and diehard Bucks fan, and they had an excellent weekend in winning Game 4 yesterday over the Nets. And due to injuries, it looks like, in fact, the word just came out that Kyrie's not going to be playing for Game 5. I have to say that this series is definitely there for my Bucks for the taking. So hopefully they can take advantage of the situation and win Game 5 tomorrow, and then bring it back home on Thursday for Game 6. So that's great. And my Brewers are taking advantage of a super easy schedule right now where they have a long stretch of games against the Pirates, Rockies, Diamondbacks, and Reds. And they are in first place as well. And so, yeah, all around good weekend for me personally, sports wise, and for all those out there that are Bucks and Brewers fans. And yeah, just so far a great summer of sports. So with that out of the way, I am excited to welcome our guest for episode 27. He is Chase Payne from Champions Round. Welcome to the podcast, Chase.
Hey, Mark, thanks for having me. Glad to join.
Absolutely. Thanks for making time. So I had a chance to do a quick little rundown of what Champions Round is, but it looks like it's a very unique and interesting value proposition on kind of the traditional daily fantasy sports model. And so would love for you to give the audience, in your own words, kind of a deep dive into what exactly Champions Round is and does, and how people can check out the app and all that good stuff. And then, yeah, we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, thanks again for having me today. Excited to have this conversation. And with Champions Round, so I'm one of the co-founders and chief product officers at. I am the chief product officer at Champions Round. And when we look at what does sports look like today and of tomorrow, what does sports look like in 10 years? We start with there shouldn't be off seasons. There should be no off season in sports. And from the lens of a spectator, someone who loves sports, who's grown up around sports, fantasy has been this really awesome innovation to the spectator experience, basically gamifying the way we watch sporting events. And to see the innovation continue, we still feel that the tradition of sports is kind of holding back the growth opportunities. And so really simply, the best group of friends that we have, I've been playing for over 20 years. With the NFL, I only see those friends like 26 calendar weeks of the year. This year I get one more additional week, but at the other half, there's nothing to do. So we're setting out really believing that there should be more games of skill that allow fans to consume sports and connect with the athletes they love in different ways all year round, not just when it's in season. So we are early stage and having a lot of fun and getting ready for this NFL season. We'll be rolling out our first paid offering.
So when you say it's year round, you're referring to other sports that you allow people to place daily fan. Is it daily? Actually, let me take a step back here. Is it just daily fantasy? Is it season long fantasy, a combination of both? Or what are the actual contests that you're running within Champions Round, before I kind of get into like which sports and stuff you offer? Would be good to get just what is the structure of it like?
Great question. So for the legalese and the compliance folks in the industry, we fall in the category of daily fantasy sports as like a category. So we're paid fantasy sports. For the average fan of sports, it's to them, is it DFS? Is it sports betting? It all kind of feels the same, but we are distinctly structurally run contests that are games of skill that function on a paid offering with a DFS laws here in the States. So up until this year, we've been running free to play games. So learning a ton, and we're very familiar with that model. So that's where the legal answer, so I don't get in trouble, we are not a legal sports wagering platform yet, but that's a category that we see ourselves entering at some point.
So when you talk about games of skill, then I mean that obviously can encompass a lot. Do you also get into things like trivia or other stuff like that, or is it strictly kind of building lineups for the contests and then going from there?
Yeah, so the current iteration of like our products, we're available on iOS and Android, and we want to keep it really really simple. We started with just the journey of how can I get any sports fan in to enjoy a game with their friends as quick as possible. So we're really focused on optimizing that experience because the way that games of skill laws are written currently and the way that we see them continuing to unfold, we need to be flexible. The real action isn't really in how the game mechanics work; it's more in the how they're structured. That's where most of our attention has been. So the games we currently offer are more like salary cap and pick 'em. So there's some prediction games in there, but we see ourselves getting into snake drafts, like traditional redrafts that people are used to. Best ball is a category that we like, but we really kind of start with like where is the opportunity or the white space around an audience not being served, and then finding a game mechanic that makes the most sense for them. So this fall we'll be rolling out with a pick 'em and a salary cap model first.
And is it just NFL, or do you offer other sports as well?
We currently offer NFL, but the plan is to expand into other sports through Q4.
Got it. And in keeping kind of with your theme of being something year round, do you see that fitting into it, like being able to offer sports across all seasons? So you have, hockey, basketball, football, baseball, maybe even some other sports like tennis and whatnot as they're going on year round.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we start with like the structure of a calendar year, right? 12 months in a year, 365 days. Where's the time being spent from a spectator experience, and then working backwards from there of what a fan expects today, and then really looking for that white space around where they're not being served. So NBA is a perfect example that parallels a lot of the other franchise professional sports where they have their traditional regular season, postseason. They have these off-season events. There's a lot of excitement around the draft, stuff like that. So we see like events like the draft as ways of bridging that gap into the regular season action.
So I find this interesting that you're also on the board of directors for the Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association. I'd never even heard of them until just now. Um, can you tell us a little bit more about them, what they represent, what their goals are, and kind of what your role is within them? Because I think this could be something that's really interesting on the legal side of things for DFS or any other gaming that you guys tackle.
You know what? You just actually unearthed one of my motivations here, Mark, was to take this podcast and ask you to join. Like, I think you need to be a part of it because there needs to be more startups with cool ideas, growing this space, honestly. So, yes, so the FSGA is the Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association. I'm one of the board directors member. I lead the membership chair for the membership committee. And what it is it's a nonprofit trade association dedicated to the advancement of the fantasy sports and sports, legal sports wagering industry. It's the only one really here in the United States. It's been around since the late 90s. It started off as FSA, became the FSTA, it rebranded. The group
What did T stand for?
Fantasy Sports and Trade Association.
Okay.
So interesting enough, the rebrand was really intentional because we saw, the whole mission around the FSGA is connecting fans to the sports they love. So it's a mix of business owners, content creators, operators, compliance, business services, the whole gamut of the industry. I kind of call it the brain trust of the fantasy industry.
Is it more fantasy sports or sports betting or both?
It is both. It has historically been more fantasy, but we've intentionally shifted and really acknowledge where the industry is going with fantasy and sports betting becoming so close in the consumer's eyes that we need to work together. So the rebrand was intentional. So it's a mix of fantasy companies and sports betting companies.
Awesome. Amazing. And it says that you guys have 200 member companies. Looks like there's about 14 or 15 people on LinkedIn that are involved with it. In terms of member companies, what does that look like? Are those people that, pay annual dues and attend conferences and trade shows, or what does membership in the FSGA get you?
Yeah, correct. So the FSJ is a membership model, membership led trade association. So the association is a nonprofit. So even as a board member, I don't get paid for being on the board.
Hmm.
But the existing membership companies encompass, as I mentioned, all the different verticals of the industry. We're all dues paying members. So membership companies like Champions Round or DraftKings, FanDuel, CBS, we're all dues paying members. And with that comes, a lot of benefits. One, the networking side of working with other folks that are trying to advance the industry. It's a great for understanding the industry. So we publish research that is really kind of the leading measurement of what the industry is from a market standpoint. And the other parts, I think, from a big value that the membership got in the past is we run two trade shows throughout the year, two in-person conferences. And interesting enough, we just had our first in-person trade show
Awesome.
in like a year and a half. Yeah, since COVID was made things really, really messy, but we just ran it last week in Frisco, Texas. We had 159 people in person
Oh, wow.
that were there. 55 were attending online. It was like a day and a half of panels, and there was a
Oh, I
pitch
wish I would have known
competition.
about it. I would have
Yeah,
come.
it was great. We had a great time down in Frisco. But don't worry, the next one, I think you'll have way more fun. It's actually in Vegas. It'll be in February. So February 13th, we're doing our
I don't
winter
want to wait till
conference.
February though. I want to do another one right now.
I feel you. It was nice being around people again. I got to be honest.
So okay, so two trade shows a year, and I'm assuming like is it does it have a little bit more of kind of a legal focus to it since it's trying to I guess kind of have some lobbying and have some legal takes on how things can be improved and all that kind of stuff, or is it more of kind of just the networking aspects like you talked about?
So the FSGA in the past and current and looking forward has played different roles in one, growing the industry, the education side of it, and now more recently government affairs is like a really big part of it. So your question of like compliance and lobbying efforts, like are we on Capitol Hill pushing bills? No, but we're seen
Mm.
as like the association that experts come to better understand the best approach to enter markets, to best serve and the different jurisdictions that are out there, and they're also very different. So that's something that has become like I think one of like the defining strengths of the organization because again we're U.S. centric. We have a really broad base that again a lot of thought leaders that have been here for a long time.
Right.
They understand the space intimately. So and I guess membership is not exclusive to just operators or content creators. So like we have some great people in there from the compliance side, regulatory side that speak
Mhm.
again, spoke at our conferences and are dues paying members.
Cool. And it's based in the town of my alma mater. And I'm actually, as you probably heard in the monologue, originally from Wisconsin. So it looks like their headquarters are in Madison. Um, I went to school in Madison. Grew up in the Milwaukee area, then went to school in Madison. So it's pretty cool that they're based there. I didn't even know about this. This is awesome. So yes, any other listeners out there, if you're already not part of the FSGA, um, can they submit membership requests just right on the website at the fsga.org, or is there a better way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the fsga.org, there's a big old join button on the website,
Hmm.
and you can go through there. We have a process for approving members that are, and that's really simple. If you find me on LinkedIn or on the internet, I'm happy to have a conversation about. I'm always recruiting, and it starts with a podcast like this, Mark. I expect to see your application or interest here soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll take care of that this week. I mean, without going into too much of a tangent here. I mean, Zen Sports has been operating international for the last couple of years, and so we are moving quickly to get licensed and operating in the U.S. We expect to have our Nevada gaming license and tech certification hopefully by the end of August. We started that process about a year ago, so it's been a long journey, but we're super excited. The light is at the end of the tunnel for that. And then we definitely expect to expand into more states beyond Nevada after August. So definitely very interested in getting involved with this. And these kinds of things are very important to us as a company, and just to our mission to further and better the experience for wagering on sports for consumers out there. So Really great, all the things that you're involved with. That's awesome. And kind of where are you at in the stage of the journey for Champions Round? It looks like you raised a little bit of funding. Are you guys, going to be, doing more fundraising in the future? Are you going to be, kind of expanding and getting distribution on what you have right now? It's been around for a few years, it looks like. Are you going to be in high growth stage soon? What does that look like for Champions Round?
Yeah, so great question. When thinking about the journey of an entrepreneur, one, I think just even saying that word out loud kind of embodies it's still very new. It feels new leading into it. I spent majority of my career working like in startup-ish consumer entertainment. Like there's a different lens on that when you put your name on something as a founder. So the journey with Champions Run has been an amazing one in that, when it started from a simple premise of like, why are there off seasons? Like, how do we get rid of that? And building from there, our journey was we bootstrapped to begin with. We launched at MVP, learned a lot. We made some bets. We also lost some bets, not literally and more so figuratively.
Yeah, you got to be careful when you say
Gotta
that.
be careful, right?
In
Gotta
this
be
industry,
careful.
people
See?
think it's like you lost money on the Clippers game the other day.
You got it. Yeah, you got it. Right. So I've learned to be buttoned up, and it's there will be a copy sent to our lawyers after this to make sure I didn't go foobar here. But
No
that
problem.
said, we're still early stage. This past pandemic, which is a wild year, we saw some light in the end of the tunnel, which validated one of our main hypotheses around could we get sports fans excited about football when there's no football on TV? And we used the NFL draft as a great moment to demonstrate there was value there. With that, we were able to secure some capital this past winter and became an institutionally backed company. So venture back, it sounds really sexy and it's fun still to say, but it also comes with the expectations of like, well, what are we doing with this? We're going to do more. Are we actually on track? And we're very critical on ourselves, and we have a high bar. So all that said, we've reached our seed level. We're looking to raise a Series A. In the foreseeable future, we're using the NFL, as you understand. NFL fantasy sports, like most of this industry, is activated during football season. So we want to set out and really deliver and show that we can build a business with this offering, but not lose sight of serving a customer, which is very different than when we started this journey years ago. But it's still really aligned with where we see the world going over the next 10 years.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's awesome. And then, so you've got a lot going on. You're also a mentor at Sports Tech Tokyo. Are you still there? And what is that all about?
Well, this becomes like another. I blame COVID for mixing it up, but it's funny getting involved in the sports tech scene. You meet great people, and I was able to get involved with Scrum Ventures and this great opportunity where they were really bringing some cool innovation to Tokyo. Like they were in the Tokyo Olympics, so there was this whole venture initiative to bring really cool consumer like sports tech and make that experience end to end awesome for fans, for operators, and for the athletes. And that was a journey we began years ago, and with anticipation of this big momentum. It's changed, however, but I think Scrum has definitely managed to build the momentum, all the value around sports tech, and spread that out in just the sports tech community. So I offer time when needed. There's a great list of portfolio companies that have built really cool things. And it's also just great to be part of another community that is trying to reimagine how we appreciate and consume sports. So that's an ongoing effort, which I'd love to be a part of.
So are you kind of mentoring and helping existing portfolio companies that they have? Are you kind of scouting deals for them? What does that look like, in terms of being a mentor at a sports tech kind of accelerator / VC?
Yeah, so think of it as like the deals and companies are identified. So I'm not sourcing companies, but consider like a subject matter expert. So we've assembled like a roster of really great subject matter experts in different industries and fields that have value to add from here's how you could maybe start your business, or here's the kind of partnership you should be looking for. Coming from the gaming world, there's a lot of overlap of what does gamification look like at scale. Where do the worlds of virtual currencies and cryptocurrencies and real currencies like cross? What does that journey look like? So it's I sit in a role where I can be a knowledge share and work with existing portfolio companies, and it's been really, really valuable.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I mean, I think the thing that's cool there is, just having that experience, kind of on the VC/investor side of things. You get to see it from their lens and how they evaluate companies, and what that relationship looks like from the other side of the table, which I think is always extremely valuable to have as an entrepreneur. So it just kind of accelerates. I think it also accelerates your ability to know how to fundraise, because what investors are. You can anticipate what investors are looking for. You can see it from, again, their lens and what they're looking for. And so let me ask you this on the, especially, I guess, specifically since it's Sports Tech Tokyo, are most of the companies that you see there, are those located in Japan, or are they located all over the world serving the Japanese market, or does it just happen to be that's where they're based out of, but it's really a global organization?
Yeah, it's a global. The companies are sourced globally. So again, the without messing up all the details, it was a venture that was kind of spun out of Ventu, I believe, and
Hmm.
Scrum Ventures partners, and Scrum Ventures saw the opportunity to like find great companies to make this the Olympics awesome, and they started this initiative, years ago, in anticipation of this big event. And again, not being so narrowly focused on just the event itself being awesome, but Scrum saw an opportunity to advance the conversation to sports technology. So you see a lot of different solutions for different sectors, and they come from companies and ideas at different stages too. I think it's also important to note the stage of companies. Some are early stage startups, some are a little bit more mature, but we had quite a wide reach in terms of participating companies. And one event I'll point to was there was again, it's like pre-COVID, we had a big demo day in San Francisco where the finalist companies came and they showed off the tech, and it was just really cool to be a part of, to see a lot of it in action. Some of it felt like you were in the future. And then again, I think you raised the point of to also see it from the mentor's eyes, but other investors' eyes of where they see opportunities and what type of partnerships being made. So yeah, it's a cool initiative. Since COVID, they've pivoted and we've regrouped, and we have like a mentor network that we're now figuring what's the next steps for keeping this kind of momentum going.
Right, right. So shifting gears back to Champions Round and the current company you have, what have been some of the challenges that you've faced in getting, a fantasy sports product up to date? Because, on the sports betting side, which we focus on, as well as the cryptocurrency side, we obviously have a ton of legal things that we've had to button up along the way in order to make sure that we are, fully in compliance and doing everything the right way. And I mean, I think we've got like 8 to 10 law firms that we work with on all of a variety of different areas, whether it be, again, crypto, or whether it be Nevada specific or US or international. And it's a definitely a potpourri of legal counsel that we have to kind of always be navigating. What's it like on the fantasy side? Because it's really a completely different set of rules. And just kind of curious, like what are some of those things that you have to navigate being in the fantasy sports world?
Yeah, so it's always a really interesting question when I think of these challenges for the being an early stage company, a startup in the fantasy space, which, uh, not to sound cliche, but focus often is the kind of the number one thing that comes up when you really look closely at what the problem we're really trying to solve of no off seasons, and reimagining the second screen experience to sports. It opens up a lot of different mediums in which you're already consuming sports, and this is also where you recognize your own bias, at your journey of enjoying sports, and compound that with, again, COVID being such a unique event. How much of the problem you're trying to solve and the solutions you're delivering, how much of that is repeatable? And I think this is where, at our stage and the problems we're trying to solve, there's a lot of different things that we see fringe benefits from, of like, hey, this is something that creates value, but is that really the value we should be focusing on. And I think that comes with trial and error. That comes with really trying to understand our customers better and the relentless pursuit of it. So kind of to sum that up of focus and this continued point of always kind of coming back to the customer, because I can't underestimate enough, like with sports returning, things coming back in person, there are consumption habits that are fundamentally different now. And we believe if we're really going to serve sports fans of today and tomorrow, we need to be honest with our own biases and continue to drill down on what's working on this journey, build with our customer, not for them.
So what do you mean by second screen experience?
So when we think of our smartphones as utility devices that can enable or enhance the experience that you're watching in front of you, whether it be on TV or in person. So second screen, we define it as the device that either connects you with people and connects you to the game. And so it's the expectation of today is that you're watching a game and checking your phone and see what your scores are. You see a touchdown on the screen and you're checking your phone to see if you're in first place. So this tethering experience exists, and we think it's going to continue to exist. But we want to define that as it's a category to understand of where does a second screen experience exist in the journey of enjoying sports, and what's that journey look like. So
do you see more broadcasts actually being kind of integrated into some of these different betting platforms, daily fantasy platforms, season fantasy platforms? What actually could be radio broadcasts, could be TV broadcasts, could be analyses, pre and post game shows, that sort of thing. I mean, where do you see, kind of the content piece of things going, as you kind of hinted that consumers want to be able to do everything kind of all in one place and be tethered to it all in one place?
So, when thinking of the challenge, or say the opportunities around the centralization of experiences, content, what does that look like? I think what will continue to be true is that there will be no one platform that can solve every problem and serve every customer. And when thinking about broadcast, I love the innovation around broadcast and the accessibility of it. I love the stuff that Twitch is doing to really kind of make it more easier to make more preferences. I still think there's a lot of work to be done around us even understanding what is the type of content we want to have and understand in those moments, those shared moments with friends. So I think I think we're going to see this continued kind of maturation of technology enabling or pulling in information and streamlining it so it's more personal. And that will be more of what we expect in the future. So I think fans will have more control than ever of what they experience and what they don't experience.
Is that the number one thing that you think fans or that customers want, is control? Or is there something else that you've found over your last couple of years of learnings that you go, yes, this is, if we're to succeed, we have to absolutely do X? What does that look like? It can be two things too, if you feel there's more than one. I'm just kind of curious, like, what are like the top one or two pain points that they've come and that customers have told you that they absolutely have to have, to have an amazing, fantasy sports experience, with your app and with your product?
So, when thinking of like one of the biggest opportunities, not to get too blue sky, but it is a nice day here in Los Angeles. I will say that I think two kind of central themes come up, but the one I'll focus here on is discovery. There's so much that we can learn through sports, and when talking to fans, much of the action and the conversations, maybe a small percentage of it we've observed, is about like what exactly happened on field. So much more of the conversations today is everything around the athlete, their journey on a personal level, what's happening off the field, the anticipation, what's going to happen on the field, so much around the access to. So I think that is something that's going to be more of what we're going to see as athletes. I firmly believe we're going to step in and be more leaders of the creator economy. There's going to be just more expectations around, I want to know more about this person. I want to find more ways to be involved. So fantasy, in a way, fills that void. In many ways, just giving you different ways to feel invested in the event you're watching. So we kind of think of it as like the Super Bowl party that you're at, and everyone has something else at stake. whether, they have some action on the game, or they have a season-long championship they're celebrating, or they're just their friends. But there's something about like sports is that kind of that tying fabric, and the discovery piece we feel is the part where is the opportunity of what are all the other ways that we can feel connected. And that's where I think the lack of tools, more modern tools to allow you to do that.
Do you think athletes will be okay with that? I mean, certainly some of them love being closer to the fans than others. I'm not sure exactly what that kind of percentage breakdown is, but obviously places like Twitter and other social media platforms give them direct access to fans where they can interact with them directly. And also you see kind of, I think, a circumventing of the mainstream media, just going direct, right? Again, if you can just go direct on Twitter and provide the news that, hey, Aaron Rodgers is definitely coming back, hopefully, that instead of going third party and hearing it secondhand from somebody else, they have that interaction. I guess, yeah, two questions for you really is, one, do you think athletes are going to want more, even deeper than what they have right now, opportunities to get closer with fans? And if they do, I guess, what would that look like beyond traditional social media platforms?
So, that's a great question. I think to address it directly, I look at it as, I think athletes want more ownership of their journey of being an athlete. And that's really kind of the underpinning, like, wrestling match we're watching play out in front of us. Is, I mentioned athletes I see being the leaders of the creator economy. And I throw in all kinds of creators, like musicians, artists, same thing. Sports is something they do. It's not who they are. And I think there are more through social media. What we're seeing is this first wave of accessibility, of seeing someone's life. So the comparison I give you is like everyone, became enamored with The Last Dance, which was a great documentary, right? And it was like seeing Michael Jordan over again. It was like seeing pieces of his life that I didn't see before, because I was just too young to get it. But with LeBron James, like, I know where he went to high school. I know the names of his kids. Had a rough idea where they live. Like,
Right.
There's so much more access that is just available, that is because of these sports they've played. And I think the next kind of chapter of this that's going to unfold is there's just more ways for athletes to self-organize and own their journeys. So that's where we think of like NFTs as a really, really interesting area of exploration, of ownership of memorabilia, that piece. I think the piece that I'm super excited personally is this legislation around NIL for collegiate athletics. Name, image, likeness.
Can you go into that a little bit more for a quick second for those that don't know what that is?
Yeah. So right now we're about to witness some unprecedented times with NIL, which is name, image, likeness. It's a much heralded debate where collegiate athletes for the first time will be able to monetize their name, image, likeness as collegiate athletes. Starting July 1st, there's a few states that have already put legislation in place to make it happen. There's a lot of rules in there of how it can happen, but it's something that has never been allowed before. And in parallel, the NCAA is also racing to get some federal legislation in there. So the next 2 weeks are going to be really interesting to see what happens. But NIL is the ability to pay college athletes. And that's college athletes are going to get paid soon. And with that comes ownership. I think we're going to start looking more closely at what does IP ownership look like on a collegiate level, and then where does it stop from there? So that's a really interesting point when we think of athletes, the journey of an athlete of today. And there are going to be more solutions at every level of athletics for athletes to monetize their name, image, likeness, and from an amateur ranks to the professional ranks, which I think, to come back to your question of, is that something that athletes want? Well, if we reframe that as there's an opportunity for a person to build a business in a more effective way, I think the universal answer would be yes. It just becomes a matter of how much.
Right. Yeah. And so I think what's interesting about that is, this has been something that's been debated and talked about forever, it feels like, and finally it's going to be coming to fruition. And I would tend to agree with you that if we can give athletes easier, faster ways to monetize, again, memorabilia, maybe it could be, I don't know, it could even be attending someone's birthday celebration, like for your favorite athlete, and setting that up easily, all those kinds of things. And it's interesting on the marketing side of sports. There's quite a few influencer platforms that now allow you to easily bring, I don't know, any athlete that you want on, or at least quite a few of them, to do influencer marketing for a cost, of course, to your brand. And so I could see there being an extension of that into the consumer space, not to do necessarily influencer marketing, but could be for all sorts of things. All right. And so maybe you want to give, an autographed football of, Aaron Rodgers to your, kid for his birthday. And what would that cost? And how would you go about doing that? Right now, it's not easy. But in the future, that could be a lot easier. So that stuff makes a lot of sense. And I think the NFT side of things is really interesting too. I would agree with you on that, for recording that memorabilia, for validating it, for putting it in the blockchain, for making it real, and authentic. I think that could be really interesting. Why don't I use that as a dovetail to talk about cryptocurrencies? And we didn't have a chance to talk in advance if this is your area of forte, but I would love to get your thoughts on cryptocurrency. I mean, we certainly have our thoughts, right? Because we do a big part of our betting is cryptocurrency related, but would love to just get your thoughts too on how you see cryptocurrencies playing into the world of sports betting, gaming, how it ties into fantasy, or any other things that you think are pretty interesting on that front. If you have an opinion, if not, totally cool, but would love to see if you do.
Yeah. So the question of cryptocurrencies and the role it plays, I will not preference myself as a subject matter expert. I'm aware of. I understand the utility value, the function. I get it, and that's something I preference. Is that my short answer? I love it. I love crypto. I love the idea of it. I love the continued focus around it. And when I think of how it fits into the business that we're focused on, our industry, I see it as another spoke in the wheel to reward players and fans and bring the world a little closer together. So I just see it as another incentive structure that awesome that there's another way of distributing it. It's different. And there just needs to be easier ways. So I think when I think of this answer to that question is I love the utility value, the ease of use, the conversation it opens up that we previously wouldn't have revisited. So even if we think of how this industry was birthed, with passbook being something that was around for decades, right? Like,
right.
Could we reimagine the Wire Transfer Act? Not getting too controversial here, but it's like
Right.
there's parts of this that are built off the precedent of legacy currencies, which it's about first seeing it and saying that's where this comes from, and then actually, I subscribe to be more of a solutions oriented person. It's just my personality. So it's not that I'm mad at the world that we got here. So it took us so long to get here. It's like, okay, cool. Like if there's not a lot of trust on the transfer of currency, let's figure that out. Can technology enable that? Do we need other infrastructure? But if the goal is to bring fans closer together, create cool different ways to reward people in real moments, there's so many possibilities that crypto unlocks that I'm all here for the solutions. I'm all here for it. So count me in.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you talk about some of the legacy legislation that's been around for decades and decades, or just the legal side of things, the thing that I think is really going to be exciting for regulators and legislators over the coming years, and we're hoping at Zen Sports we can kind of be thought leaders in this area, and help them understand this. But there is a lot of actual anti-fraud naturally built into cryptocurrencies. As long as you're doing KYC AML verification on consumers, the anti-fraud nature of cryptocurrencies is much safer than other forms of payments like credit cards, debit cards, or wire transfers or ACH, where there's all sorts of things like chargeback fraud and stealing people's credit card numbers. All that stuff is gone with cryptocurrency. So again, assuming you do the proper verifications that people are who they say they are and not bad actors and so forth, the benefits from crypto actually is going to, I think, really be a huge pleasant surprise for regulators. And they see when they see what it can do to combat a lot of the issues that they actually have, like just the fact that you can track payments, online, and it's fully visible to everybody. You can't do that with, a lot of other, forms of payment. So it can actually greatly reduce, fraud and crimes and other stuff, which obviously the industry wants to continue to tackle. So yeah, we're super duper excited about it, over here at Zen Sports and the future of it. And you may have seen like Wyoming, what was it, 6, 8 weeks ago, came out and said that they're going to be the first state to allow cryptocurrency wagering on sports. So that's amazing. And there's all sorts of, yeah,
Progress.
I know, right? And then for us, selfishly, so we do not just peer to peer, but we also do traditional sports book. But what's cool on the peer to peer side is Tennessee more or less kind of came out and said that they're good with peer to peer. Nevada seems like they will likely be okay with it too. But yeah, I mean, you're right. The progress is just it's right there in front of us, which is really exciting. So yeah, definitely very, very excited for all the things that are about to come. And I think, that other part of it too is that it's just a matter of, like you said, taking the time. It's also a matter of just showing them, educating them, probably doing some small trials, field trials with certain customer segments and groups and stuff like that to show them that, hey, this works. But I think the floodgates are about to open up in the next 3 to 5 years. So I think it's all super exciting.
I love your enthusiasm. You'd be a great FSGA member. Just saying. But
oh yeah, you've already got our membership.
I'm sorry. Awesome. So, but you bring up some really important points. A related but unrelated story. Quick story I'll share is
yeah, please.
I was traveling like maybe a few years ago, and I remember watching my friend who was Estonian file their taxes in a remote country, and she used this ID. She plugged it into her laptop. And she's like, "Yeah, I'm on like the Estonian internet, and I'm doing my taxes." Like, what? Like, wait, what? Like, your whole identification's in like this card? She's like, "Yeah, like our entire like." Basically most of like their legislation process, like infrastructure is all virtual, like paper, and that's like part of like this. If you know the history of Estonia, like there's a lot of wars there. So they built the country very, very recently. So it's like you have new infrastructure solving old problems in a different way, right? And you could see the value, but unless like it's something that you are directly seeing or understanding or participating in, this is where I fast forward, like how much of this conversation is exactly that old infrastructure, trying to solve an old problem in old ways. And it's not that the solutions don't exist, but it's what's the path to prove the value. So I'm all with you on like, if it's trials, if it's like, let's just take, make one state like the test bed and go for it. Like there's something about like there's not a shortage of people who want to try and do. But I do think where those conversations happen, those intersections, how we do that, that's why I get kind of like that's where the startup juice kicks in. I'm like, yeah, like solutions will get us
right
ahead. So
yeah. And I think, consumers are demanding it, right? Like they're just not going to be okay with the older way of doing things. And not just COVID related, but even as, for example, Las Vegas has completely come back to life now, basically 100% compared to where it was pre-pandemic. Forget that for just a quick second. That obviously changed a lot, but just in general, like, Gen Y, Gen Z, millennials, that they don't want to be doing things kind of the old way and archaic processes that were set up, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. These things have to change. And, generally you're right. Like it's the technologies that probably move, not probably, the technologies always move faster than the legislation does. And it's always the legislation catching up. But I think this is the inflection point because it has to be, because clearly consumers want betting. They want to do what they want with their money as long as it's legal and ethical, which it is. And so, I mean, give them what they want, right? And do it in a controlled, regulated manner, and give them these additional features so that it is in a transparent, regulated environment versus underground. So yeah, no, I mean, and I heard like places like Estonia, like you can get an Estonia, passport like almost lightning fast because it's all digital and form a corporation or a business there. So hopefully we're getting to that point pretty quickly because the technology's there, the consumer demand is there. It's time, right?
I'm with all of it. Yes, yes, and yes. See,
Yeah,
I'm on the
amazing
right side of
picks.
history here. I'm on the right side of history here. It's everything you said. And there's something too I'd add to that last point is we want to give transparency too. Like there's a part of this process which we don't get better as an industry if we're not like we think about this a lot when explaining like how we come up with scoring structures and like game theory, like explaining like your league to a friend. Like there's so much complexity in that, which some of it is some by design, but also just think just a lack of this general understanding. So if we can just get better at, yeah. So I think the point is like we want to bring everyone along in the journey.
100%. Last and most important question I have to ask you: Bucks and 6, right?
Yeah, after that Kyrie injury, I'm like, so Buck, yeah, the deer to be feared, all of that. It's just a different team without Harden and Kyrie. I mean, it was designed to be the big three. I think Kevin Durant is greatness, yes, but this is like one of those like you got a bad hand, and the Bucks are that good. I think the
Their
Bucks might
defense,
be
their defense
their
is,
defense is so good.
yeah, yeah.
And I love watching like Drew Holiday. Like I think Drew Holiday is finally getting like the roses that he deserves because he plays both ends. He is, yeah, this is like the moment, like he stepped into a moment and the supporting cast is there. So yeah, Bucks.
Yeah, and the thing is with the injuries, like it's something you can't control when it happens. I mean, look at when the Raptors won. I mean, Durant didn't play for most of the series. Uh, 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 well, I'm blanking now. What's his name? He tore his ACL as well.
Oh, that was it. Clay
Yeah,
tore his
Clay did. That's right.
ACL. Yeah,
Thank you.
that series. Yep.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then even if you look at the Suns series this year against the Lakers, like AD, didn't play for the last, couple of games, I mean, it just against the Nuggets, the Suns caught another break. They didn't have to go up against Jamal Murray. So the reality is injuries are part of the game, and also you have to recognize that with the roster that the Nets built, that was a possibility, right? The reality is I mean, Kyrie has been hurt before in the past, not as bad as say Durant, but just he has been hurt before. Harden certainly has had injuries as well too, and yeah, I mean, I their bench is pretty good, but the reality is they are banking on all three guys, and I'm not going to also feel sorry from a karma perspective. I mean, when you build quote unquote super teams, I'm sorry, but like I'm just not gonna feel sorry for them. That's all there's to it. And it's not our problem. That being said, I do a little bit at least wish that Kyrie was playing because I actually still think we could beat them with him, I should say. I mean, we beat them in game 3. We were gonna beat them yesterday, even if Kyrie stays in the game. I think we win that game. So certainly winning game 5 on the road will be much easier without Kyrie, but I still think it was possible. So yeah, it's a little annoying,
Yeah,
but you know what? By
there's
next round,
no
nobody's gonna.
asterisks. Take it.
No, no, no.
I take that. You guys are good. Like I'm saying, like Bucks are a good team.
Yeah,
I think they're putting it together. And to your, to build on your points, like I think the elephant in the room here is like we all kind of thought that it'd be like KD that would have gone down with an injury at this
right.
point. I mean, he's put some serious minutes on that body. Like he's 32 and he's playing like 33 minutes in the regular season. I was like, geez, this guy is. He's already different. Like we get that he's elite. We get it. But like coming in, it's like he is the first like working example of someone who was a superstar before an Achilles injury and comes back and still a superstar. So
It's absurd. I mean, he just
he's
rarely
unreal.
misses. That being said, PJ Tucker has been in his grill and has been. I've never seen anybody play such good defense on him before, and not just physically, like mentally. Like you can tell he's kind of in his head a bit, and that's exactly why they brought. That's exactly why they traded DJ Augustine and DJ Wilson. They traded 2 DJs to get PJ. So
It's an upgrade. It's an upgrade.
2 DJs equal 1 PJ.
That math checks out.
That math works.
Checks out.
Well, awesome, Chase. You've been a terrific guest. Thank you so much for joining. We will definitely be putting in our application for FSGA to be a member there. Love what you guys are doing there to further the cause and further the industry. And yeah, thanks so much again for your time today. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Mark. Really appreciate your time and having me today.